Two people, same company, same salary, same city. They both got hired on the same day, sat in the same orientation room, and were handed the same offer letter, $52,000 a year. They even had lunch together that first afternoon. 23 years later, one of them retired at 58, paid off his home, built a portfolio that pays him every single month, and now spends his mornings working on something he actually loves. The other one is still sitting in that office. Same desk, different chair, still working, not because he didn't get raises, he got plenty, not because life dealt him something harder, but because everything he believed about money was quietly, consistently working against him. This isn't about income. It never was. Most people assume the reason they're financially stuck is because they don't earn enough. And I understand why that story feels true. But the gap between those two people wasn't the money that came in. It was the lies they believed about what to do with it. These aren't dramatic lies. They're not obvious. They're quiet beliefs that sound like wisdom. The ones your parents repeated. The ones your boss casually mentions at lunch. The ones you've never once thought to question, because on the surface, they sound completely reasonable. That's exactly what makes them dangerous. What I'm going to show you today are the 10 money lies that keep ordinary, working, responsible people trapped in a cycle they never signed up for. Not because they're careless, but because they're following rules that were never designed to make them free. Let's get into it. Rule 1. A raise will fix everything. This is the most accepted lie in the working world, and it's dangerous because there's just enough truth in it to sound real. More money coming in is better than less. That part is true. But here's what most people miss. The moment income rises, spending rises to match it, almost automatically. Psychologists call it lifestyle inflation. Most people just call it finally being comfortable. You go from a studio to a two-bedroom. The car payment goes up. The vacations get a little nicer. The restaurants you choose chain. And 3 months after the raise, you feel just as financially tight as you did before, except now you need more money to maintain the life you've built. The raise didn't give you freedom. It raised your floor. The hidden consequence is that every lifestyle upgrade you lock in becomes a new financial obligation. Obligations require income, which means you need the job more after the raise than you did before it. Rule 1 isn't don't enjoy your income. It's this: a raise only changes your life if you consciously decide what to do with it before it arrives. Rule 2. You need to be debt-free before you start investing. This sounds disciplined, responsible, even. And for high-interest debt, like credit cards running at 20%, paying it off first absolutely makes sense. But applying this logic to all debt is where people lose years, sometimes decades. Here's a real scenario. Two people. Both have a $20,000 student loan at 5% interest. One waits until it's fully paid off, takes 6 years, then starts investing. The other starts putting $300 a month into an index fund immediately while making minimum loan payments. After those same 6 years, the second person has a portfolio worth over $25,000. The first person has zero invested and is only just starting. It gets worse. That 6-year head start compounds for the next 30 years. The gap becomes enormous. The lie is that debt and investing are opposites. They're not. They can run in parallel. What matters is the rate you're paying versus the return you could be earning. If your debt costs you 5%, and the market has averaged over 8% across decades, waiting to invest is actually costing you money, while you think you're being smart about it. Rule 3. Your job is your financial security. Not only is this lie emotionally comfortable, it gets reinforced every single time you receive a paycheck. The consistency of a salary trains your brain to trust the source. And so most people unconsciously organize their entire financial life around that one stream of income. But one income source is not security. It's fragility wearing a uniform. Think about what your job actually is: a contract that either side can break. Companies downsize, industries shift, markets contract. The average person changes jobs multiple times across their career, often not by choice. And when that single income stream disappears, there's no backup. There's just panic and depleted savings. Nobody talks about this clearly enough. The people who achieve real financial security don't just protect their job. They build alongside it a side skill, a small digital asset, a dividend portfolio, not to get rich fast, but to ensure that their financial life doesn't depend entirely on one decision made by someone else behind a closed door. Rule 4. I'll save more when I earn more. This lie isn't about behavior, it's about psychology. The belief that the future version of you will be more disciplined than the current version of you is one of the most persistent illusions in personal finance. It doesn't happen, and the data confirms it. Studies consistently show that savings rates don't automatically increase with income. People earning $80,000 are saving the same percentage of their income as they were at $50,000 because the baseline always expands first. The habit of saving doesn't arrive with the paycheck. It has to be built before the money grows. Here's the real cost. Every year you delay building that habit, you lose the one thing no amount of money can ever buy back. A 25-year-old saving $200 a month will, in most scenarios, retire with significantly more than a 35-year-old saving $500 a month. 10 years earlier beats twice the amount, almost every time. Starting earlier doesn't just help, it's practically the whole strategy. Rule 5. Your home is your best investment. I want to be careful here because homeownership matters. Stability, family planning, eventually having no rent payment, these are real and valuable. But the financial fantasy of the house as an investment deserves a closer look. Here's what most people don't factor in: property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, transaction costs when you sell, the interest paid on a 30-year mortgage, and opportunity cost. When you account for all of it, the average home appreciation in real terms, adjusted for inflation, has historically been around 1% per year. That's not an investment strategy. That's a place to live. The people who confused the two spent 30 years assuming their home equity would take care of everything, and then discovered that you can't spend equity unless you sell the house or borrow against it. A home is shelter first, an investment second. Build both, just don't let one replace the other. Rule 6. I worked hard for this, so I deserve to spend it. This is the most emotionally powerful lie on this list because it's not wrong in spirit. You do work hard. You do deserve good things. But this belief, when used to justify impulsive or status-driven spending, quietly dismantles every financial plan you try to build. The word deserve in personal finance is almost always a trap. It feels like self-respect. But what it typically translates to is this: converting something that can grow into something that depreciates and disappears, and doing it for a feeling that lasts a few days. Here's where the psychology gets interesting. We normally fear losing what we have, but with this kind of emotional spending, we're so focused on the reward of buying that we stop calculating the actual loss, the compounded future value of that money. A $1,200 purchase at 35, invested instead at an 8% average return, could be worth over $9,000 by retirement. That's what treating yourself actually costs. And nobody ever shows you that receipt. Rule 7. Saving money is how you build wealth. Saving is essential. But saving alone is not a wealth-building strategy. It's a wealth preservation strategy, and there's a real difference. Money sitting in a savings account earning 2% loses purchasing power every year when inflation runs at 3 to 4%, which means the responsible, disciplined person who saves diligently and never invests is actually getting poorer in real terms. Slowly, quietly, while feeling like they're doing everything right. The people who escape the working forever trap understand that saving is the foundation, but investing is the engine. You save to create capital. You invest to make that capital work independently of your labor. The goal is to eventually reach a point where your money earns more than your working hours do. Saving gets you to the starting line. Investing moves you down the track. Rule 8. Investing is for people who understand finance. This lie keeps more people out of financial growth than almost anything else on this list. The belief that investing is complex, risky, and reserved for people with financial backgrounds is completely and thoroughly false. And it was built, consciously or not, by the same industry that profits from your confusion. Here's what nobody explains clearly to beginners. Some of the most consistent long-term investment strategies in history are also the simplest. Broad index funds, automatic monthly contributions, low fees, long time horizon, that's it. No expertise required, no daily monitoring, no complicated analysis. The most financially successful ordinary people are often not the most financially knowledgeable. They're the most consistent. Showing up every month, adding to the portfolio, not panicking when markets drop. Simplicity held with patience beats complexity almost every time. The barrier here is psychological, not technical. Rule 9. I'll retire when I have enough. The problem with enough is that it's not a number, it's a feeling. And feelings don't have finish lines. Most people approaching retirement have never actually sat down and calculated how much they need invested to sustain their lifestyle without working. They haven't run the number, so they move the goalpost. Every few years, enough becomes more than what they currently have, and they keep working not because they have to, but because the target was never clearly defined. There's a framework called the 4% rule, not a perfect formula, but a useful starting point. If your annual expenses are $50,000, you need approximately $25 million invested to sustain that lifestyle indefinitely from returns alone. That's a concrete number. You can plan around it. You can track your progress toward it. You can feel the momentum of getting closer. Vague goals produce vague progress. Specific numbers produce direction. Most people have never written down the number. That's why they never reach it. Rule 10. I still have time. This is the lie that makes all the others possible. Every year you tell yourself this, the math gets harder. Not slightly harder, significantly harder. Because compounding doesn't work in a straight line, it accelerates. The earliest contributions to a portfolio are the most powerful, not because of the amount, but because of how long they have to multiply. At 25, time is your most powerful financial asset. At 45, it's still useful, but the leverage is diminished. At 55, you're working against compounding rather than with it, and no amount of aggressive saving fully compensates for what was lost in those early years. I'm not saying this to create regret. I'm saying it because wherever you are today is the earliest you can still begin. Remember the two people from the beginning. Same salary, same city, same starting point. Here's what actually separated them. The one who retired at 58 started investing $150 a month at 27, even while paying off a car loan. He ignored his first raise and kept his rent low for 2 extra years. He never waited until things felt financially perfect. He bought a home, but he didn't count on it for retirement. He built the saving habit before he had the income to make it easy. The other one kept waiting for the raise to settle in, waiting until the debt was cleared, waiting until he understood investing better, waiting until things calmed down. The years moved in one direction. The compounding window narrowed. And the target kept shifting because it was never clearly set. Here's the truth about these 10 lies. None of them feel like lies when you're living inside them. They feel like patience. They feel like responsibility. They feel like wisdom that keeps you from making mistakes. That's what makes them so powerful and so costly. The question isn't whether you've believed some of these. You probably have. The question is which ones are still running quietly in the background right now, shaping decisions you haven't examined yet. Because the people who work forever aren't unlucky. They're just still waiting for the right moment to begin. And that moment is always quietly today.